John D. Calandra Italian-American Institute and City University Television present ITALICS, the Italian-American magazine. Your hosts, Joseph Scelsa and Emilisa Aliandri.
Hi, I'm Emilisa Aliandri, and this is ITALICS, the Italian-American magazine.
And I'm Joseph Scelsa. Welcome back to our show. We're coming to you this time from right here in front of New York City Hall.
We have a message from the mayor for you that we'll tell you all about a little later.
We have a lot to report to you this month. So, Emilisa, let's get started.
Okay, Joe. First, an assessment from Mayor Rudolph Giuliani on the state of the city.
Then we'll attend a lecture at Yale University by former ambassador to Italy, Peter Secchia.
We'll also talk with author Nina Da Vinci Nichols, Vice President of the Pirandello Society of America.
To cap off our show, Joseph Califano, former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, speaks at Lehman College on the future of America's health care.
Now we'll attend a meeting hosted by the National Italian-American Foundation at the Columbus Club, where Mayor Giuliani addresses issues related to the future of New York City.
The Columbus Citizens Foundation in New York City was the location for a power breakfast between the mayor of the city of New York, Rudolph Giuliani, and area Italian and Italian-American business leaders. Sponsored by the National Italian-American Foundation, the breakfast provided the mayor with the prime opportunity to promote New York as one of the finest cities in the world to conduct business in. The mayor was introduced to the audience by Sal Zizza, board member of the National Italian-American Foundation.
It's my great pleasure to present to you the mayor of the city of New York. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Citing the city's cultural diversity, revitalized quality of life, and strong economic base, the mayor projected a more balanced relationship between his administration and area business.
What I really wanted to talk to you about is the economy of the city, because it's something that is a fascinating enterprise, and it's something that is at the core, really, I think, of the American economy. And for Italian Americans, for business people from Italy, this is probably the best place in the world to do business, because we're the most diverse and the most interesting city in the world. The budget of New York City, when I became mayor of the city of New York, was about $32 billion. That's the amount of money New York City was scheduled to spend that year. That would make New York City the third largest state in the United States. Not the third largest city, not the largest city, the third largest state in the United States. The only states that spend more than New York City are the state of California and the state of New York. New York City spends more than the state of Texas, the state of Florida, the state of Illinois. It spends twice as much as the state of New Jersey and 10 times more than the state of Arkansas. Wonder why I picked Arkansas. Kind of think of Arkansas. That's a massive, massive amount of spending that then has to rest on the shoulders of the people who pay taxes in New York City. So they end up supporting 3 of the 4 largest budgets in the United States. The United States budget, the state of New York, and the city of New York. That all rests on our taxpayers and on our businesses. And I see my job as having to lift some of that burden so that the natural inducements of doing business in New York can kind of come to the fore, for which you may spend more money, may pay a premium, but not quite at the excessive levels at which we were doing it. New York City last year slipped below the top 50 cities in America for crime. There are 50 more American cities in which you have a greater chance of being victimized by crime in every single category. And the fact is that it is now the safest large city in America. Of the top 10 cities in America, New York City is the city in which you have the least chance of being victimized by a crime. Because I believe if you can do two things in this city, the economy of the city takes over, and we just become a real leader in this country for redeveloping our economy. And the two things are to have a safe city and an increasingly safer city, and secondly, to have a city in which the size of the government is in proportion to the size of the private sector. And we're doing both now. And I encourage you to, for those of you who are visiting here and considering getting active in NIAF, I encourage you to do all of that, to visit here again, to get interested in NIAF, and to spend a little money while you're here, if you don't mind.
How important are events like this in the Italian-American community for New York?
Well, this is very important. NIAF is a very, very important national organization. It has done absolutely tremendous work in helping Italian-Americans and not only business people, people in politics, but everyone. And this is an organization that is enormously helpful in very practical ways, and then I think in a really beautiful way. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on what it means to be Italian-American and how much we've contributed and how much more all of us and our children can contribute.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Joe.
NIAF and the Yale College Italian Society collaborated in presenting former Ambassador Peter Secchia. We'll hear him speaking on relations between the United States and Italy. ITALICS is here at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut for another of the NIAF Distinguished Lecturer Series. Tonight we'll meet former Ambassador Peter Secchia, Ambassador from the United States to Italy. Held at the Rose Alumni House, the lecture was co-sponsored by the young and energetic Yale College Italian Society. The topic of Ambassador Secchia's discussion was Italy and America, a Modern Vision.
We find that sometimes people do not listen to each other and joint participation becomes impossible. And in today's world, there's a lot for business people to think about with the shrinking global travel time and increasing global economy, and huge new markets are opening, boiling with opportunity for the business or industry willing to invest a little thought and effort. But we have to be creative today, and we have to understand the culture of the nations we're penetrating. And I remember often a saying I'd heard when I was in school that B.F. Skinner said, the real question is not whether machines think, but whether men do. And I thought that the first recipe for success that I saw from Americans who were visiting in Italy was that time is flying by, so we have to use it wisely, yet we must take that time to understand their culture and then be decisive, because I think the Italians would welcome any American business venture. Change is coming to this world, and it's changing fast. And Italy sits right smack in the middle of that. A peninsula of tranquility and beauty, a cultural mecca that is surrounded by turmoil and instability. Change is coming to this world, and change is coming fast. And I think the Italians are looking to America for that friendship that they believe they earned and deserve. And I think I have my most fun going around talking to young Italian Americans or people who are interested in Italy, and hoping that we continue to teach our children the history and the heritage of our friends and allies, and we take a particular significance to this particular relationship, because Italy is known more to those who don't know Italy for its changes in government, for its strikes, for its food, its music, and its art. It's seldom viewed as it really is: a rock, a strong, reliable, consistent ally, a partner in NATO that the United States has never found a problem with. The Italians were the first to allow AT&T and our telecom companies to come in and create partnerships in cellular telephones and satellite. The Italians worked side by side with us on the first satellite launching of the tethered satellite operation. They lead the world in magnetics and burning plasma, clean fission, industries that are on the cutting edge of tomorrow's future. And who do they like as a partner? Us, the United States, you. They're leaders, but they recognize that they need good friends like us. And maybe it's a shame that we can't recognize that we have good friends like them.
Mr. Ambassador, can you tell us if it presented any particular challenges being an Italian American and being the ambassador from the United States to Italy?
Well, I think there are some who would think it is more difficult if you are of Italian extraction, and I think that in most cases, on balance, it worked in my favor. But it also depends on how you use it. You don't flaunt it. Your ancestors fled the country, and their ancestors remained. Your ancestors are, the bloodline has diminished, your knowledge of the language and the culture has diminished. So it becomes, it can be difficult at times, but I think if you do a good job, they'll endear themselves even more to you because you are Italian American. So the first goal is to do a good job, and the second goal is to be Italian American.
How do you see the United States and Italy progressing as we move into the 21st century?
I think the relationship is excellent, and I think it's going to get only better. I think one of the problems is the American people don't recognize the value of the Italian relationship, as which I tried to speak to here. I think the government recognizes it, but I'm not so sure the American people do. And that's our job, to get that word out.
ITALICS asked Ignatius Grande, president of the Yale College Italian Society, how the group was progressing at the college.
Yeah, I mean, we have about, I'd say 35, 40 members who come to different events. We have 20 to 30 who are very faithful and come to a lot of the functions, whether we go have a pizza social or have a trip to New York, or we've had dinner discussions with different prominent professors here at school, and different events such as tonight's. And we also, last semester, actually had a tribute to the former president of Yale, who's A. Bartlett Giamatti, who also was the commissioner of baseball. And we just felt that was something important that we could do here. I mean, it had been 5 years since he had passed away. And we felt he was such an important man who was Italian-American, who had been a part of the Italian culture. And it worked out well.
John, are you satisfied with today's event?
Yes, I'm very, very happy with tonight's event. It's definitely a milestone for the Yale College Italian Society. And this event by Ambassador Peter Secchia, this presentation, will give the Italian Society, which is a very young organization, a new sense of legitimacy and purpose on campus at Yale, as well as within the greater New Haven community.
What do you hope to accomplish here at Yale?
Well, we hope to encourage among young people of Italian-American descent the desire to associate, to have programs such as this that talk about their culture and their contributions of Italians to America, and to give them an opportunity to know more about their roots and to take great pride in the contributions of Italians to America.
Next, let's meet Nina Da Vinci Nichols, a dedicated play producer and Pirandello scholar. Now here's Professor Nichols.
Welcome to ITALICS.
Thank you.
Nina Da Vinci Nichols. We're here to talk about some of your writing. You're at Rutgers University, but you've had a lot of writing published, and a lot of your interest has been in the theater.
I've been something of a gadfly, and happily so, because it's given me a chance to do a lot of different things. You're right, theater. I consider that a passion. I'm happiest when I'm doing a theater series. I did one for Rutgers, Theater for the 20th Century. And I still keep it alive by doing one show every semester or so.
You produce, directed yourself?
Yes, both. Sometimes only produce, sometimes produce and direct. This year, what I'm doing is creating a series about Pirandello, which we're calling the Pirandello Legacy, doing readings from some of his plays, and then from some plays that show his influence very clearly on playwrights afterward. In fact, it's hard to find a playwright that he has not influenced. I just now completed, with a colleague, a book about Pirandello, and I think finally I begin to understand him.
Really?
I think so. I think I'm just beginning.
It's a process, right? A lifelong process.
I know that I didn't when I started the book. I know that I did not. But I think that feeling, very odd, it's come about in a couple of ways. I've been thinking about it. In part because as I get older, I think I've become more Italian. And so it's taken me to this advanced age before I began to understand that mind in a different way. And it was working on the book that led me to think that I could begin to work on the plays to produce them. So it's an exciting time. Pirandello and Film. It's looking at his evolution, if you like, from a novelist to a dramatist and to a filmmaker.
Did he actively become involved in film?
Very much so. In fact, from the very beginning of Italian film, in 1904, the first film company, if it was not the first, it was maybe the second film company at all, was in Italy, right under his window. And so he was looking out on a meadow where a company that looked like a kind of fairground, studio, was making film. So from the very beginning, he was interested. And people don't know that about him. We don't tend to know that.
No, it's surprising information.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the other things you've written and published.
Well, I have a new book coming out that I've thought about for a long time. It's a book of literary criticism. But it has taken a myth figure that fascinated me for a long, long time, many years, the Ariadne figure, best known to us as the abandoned bride of the Greek hero Theseus, or the wife of the god Dionysus. And I thought about her as the principal figure in those stories rather than the peripheral figure. And once I began to do that, I couldn't stop. I began to see her everywhere. And so finally this book, the first of two that I have planned about Ariadne, this book shows her, I hope, as an archetype of woman. And one, the very first female archetype, who is both mother and wife and daughter, or mother, wife, lover, daughter. And I haven't finished with her yet.
What will the second book
The second one will be, this one is using her in literary criticism, looking at famous heroines of the 19th century through her. And the second one is looking just at her in her classical context, and then looking at her as a figure, a ghost in contemporary fiction written by women. So I haven't finished with her yet, and she's my, I don't know how, we have to live together a long time, she and I, still.
The Honorable Joseph Califano, former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, recently spoke at Lehman College on the future of health care in America.
Joseph A. Califano, Jr., the former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare during the Carter administration, spoke recently at the Lehman College campus of the City University of New York. The lecture, based on Mr. Califano's new book, Radical Surgery, What's Next for America's Healthcare, dealt with the issues of American medicine and healthcare. Who pays, what services are provided, and how can healthcare be improved and made more accessible? Mr. Califano, who is the director of the Center for Drug and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, also addressed issues such as drug addiction, alcoholism, smoking, medical research, and personal responsibility in preventative medical care and maintenance. The Distinguished Lecture Series is sponsored by the Italian American Faculty and Staff Association at Lehman College. ITALICS asked Mr. Califano what the first steps to improving health care in the United States should be.
I think, the first things I would do would be to, if we were going to provide care, I would provide care for all women who are pregnant and all children through the first or second year of life. That'll have the largest payoff over time. The second thing I think we have to do is change the priorities we have in research. I think we have to spend more money on research in substance abuse and addiction, more money in research on how to deal with adolescent health, which is where kids form the habits and do the experimentation that can destroy their lives, and more research on keeping older people independent longer, on the dementia problems, the Alzheimer's disease, the osteoporosis, the incontinence, so that the period during which older citizens are dependent is much shorter. We have to find ways to give people an incentive to take care of themselves. Now, some of that should be rewards, lower health insurance, if you will. Some of it should be penalties. If people smoke, they should pay more for health insurance. If people don't wear a seatbelt, they shouldn't recover for injuries that could have been prevented by wearing a seatbelt. I think we have to, and we also have to say, if you go get periodic checkups, if you go get that kind of preventive care, we'll reduce your health care premiums.
President Fernandez, can you tell us what the significance of this lecture is in conjunction with this lecture series?
Well, this is addressing a topic that is of very great interest to everyone, and certainly the audience here seem to be particularly attuned to the kinds of things that Mr. Califano was talking about. Health is one of the largest industries, if not the largest industries in this country. I think he mentioned $1 trillion. And it involves very powerful sectors of our economy. And it's something that we as taxpayers and citizens need to become very well informed about, because we're going to end up paying for a lot of this stuff. We're already paying, and it's going to get worse. So I think it's extremely important to begin to educate everyone, not just the experts, not just the people in healthcare, not just the doctors and so on. These are decisions that are too important to be left to the doctors and the people who handle these professions.
Do you feel that these lectures have made a difference on the campus?
I'm certain it's made a difference in the sense that most of our faculty, our non-Italian faculty, have really come to regard these lectures as probably among the most distinguished lectures that have been presented on this campus over the years. So I'm very confident that it has made a difference in how they now perceive Italian Americans, certainly at Lehman College, hopefully CUNY-wide, and then beyond that.
Spring is in bloom. The community is out and about, as our calendar shows. Let's take a look.
Well, that's the end of our show. Next time, we'll bring you our show from New Orleans, Louisiana, with some wonderful features. Until then, stay well. I'm Emelisa Aliandri.
We're sure you're going to enjoy it. So join us next time from the Big Easy. I'm Joseph Shelsa. Ciao for now.